Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, David Van Beekums.
Hey, Angie, how are you?
I'm doing great. We're recording here at the hot beginning of August. And so we just spent a little bit of time complaining about the respective warm weather in Texas and Florida. But
yeah, it is a hot day out there. The kids aren't
really
even playing
is.
outside right now.
I know.
We did a mid-July Christmas special. We built the clearance gingerbread houses from January. And I said, okay, let's go out and smash them. And they're like, no, not until about 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yes.
So
we need some shade. And I read a story the other day that was really interesting, that people aren't even going to the pools here in Houston because just getting out into the car and driving somewhere where you can cool off is too much effort in this heat.
Yeah. I suggested the pool too. I said, go to the community pool. No, it's too hot. I was like, that is the purpose of going to the pool, you know? We would have, like when we were kids, right? We would have I'll shoot to the pool. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was the thing to be, but that was before the internet too. So speaking of the internet and tech, tell us about your business. Oh, the Tweeva business. Oh, this is this has been a couple years in development here, and I've been the guy in the background, building out the tech side of it. And so what it is, it's a social TV platform for small businesses and influencers and content creators. So let's say it's a network that all the small businesses connect their TVs together and share a TV channel for that city. And, let's say surrounding cities, but we wanted to keep it a little bit hyper local. So just think about most cities. You have a big city, right? In Orlando, they have their own TV channel, but the one that I'm in, Apopka, we don't have our own TV channel. So this is a way that small businesses can kind of connect together and share content that's happening in the community, and also some ads for the business to help the businesses be on TV.
That's awesome. So is this kind of like this is the first thought that popped to mind. So pardon me, this is no offense intended. Is this kind of like I get to do Wayne's World if I want? I get to have like my own show?
Yeah, it's almost like your own show. Yeah. No, it's not long. I wouldn't put long content on it. It's probably like, I say it's not short form. It's not long form. It's somewhere that lives in there in between. Okay. So, all right. Help me contextualize this. So am I putting on like a daytime talk show or like a 15-minute spot? Yeah, maybe a 5-minute max spot. Like say you're sitting at the bar and you're, let's say you're only there for an hour. I mean, do you want to watch 4 15-minute clips, or do you want to watch a couple of intros to something that you may like? And you can scan the QR code on the TV and boom, now you have that whole episode right on your phone, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's something that doesn't exist, or maybe find a local influencer, or maybe a chiropractor wants to teach you how to sit in your office chair because, if you sit like that, it's worse than cigarettes now, right? So you have to sit the right way. You have to sit the right way. I've been told this multiple times. You're going to die. I'm like, maybe. I don't think it's as bad as cigarettes, but, I haven't really been shown why. That might be a funny clip, between infotainment, right? You got these TikTok things that are funny, but you learn a little bit at the same time. Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh. I've got a whole TikTok playlist about like mobility issues and stretches that you can do. Turns out that a lot of upper back pain is from tight pectoral muscles. Who knew? Yes. Yep. Yeah. A little headaches. My chiropractor said you got to squeeze the back of your the back of your neck all the way up as hard as you possibly can. And I go, yeah, that's not something I naturally would do, but it does help,
Yes. Oh man, it releases so much tension. So that's cool. Like our own little network where we can share whatever we want straight to the people, and like we can collaborate with people. Do you envision it being like people in similar businesses, complementary businesses, or like wild card?
No competition. Can't be competition. No competition. So when we were sitting down with the partners in the business, we were kind of coming up with the idea. We jokingly would sit in the restaurants and we're like, how dare Pizza Hut put their ad in your Italian restaurant? How dare they? Do they know who you are? Right? We were just kind of like joking around. And then we're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool though if you had something that couldn't be on there? You know, no other Italian restaurant could advertise. And maybe it was, maybe you didn't want food either. Maybe it was just doctors, chiropractors, and dentists and pool installers, right? That's popular in Florida. And just anything else that's just not food. And also maybe a couple of clips of other things going on in the community, like 4th of July fireworks or 4th of July parade that you might have missed, right? Something else that's been happening in the community.
Ooh, that's awesome. So, all right, cool. Let's backtrack a little bit. Tell me what necessitated this idea? How did the inspiration happen? What was the spark?
Well, we were working on a first project to help small business, we'll say mainly restaurants, deal with distributors and smaller distributors, not the big boys, but the smaller distributors that are not the nationwide ones. And when we were finished building that product, we wanted to market it into local businesses and restaurants. And so we kind of had this epiphany when we were discussing like, oh, could we create some sort of advertising channel? And it was really, well, that was part of it. But then there was also this other, how can we help locals connect? And, let's say if there's a plumber sitting in this chair over here and maybe 2 or 3 tables over, there's somebody that needs a plumber. And, what is his really way to find that person? Well, he has to do a Google search. Like he has to have that intent to do it. Because when I'm watching any of the TVs, I'm seeing car companies, I'm seeing franchised food and pharmaceuticals. Yeah. That's really the major things, right? So we were, how do you find the small business guy that you just may know, or he doesn't have the capability of doing that because of the cost. Cost is really high.
Oh, so, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Of course, the pharmaceutical companies are the only ones that can afford to advertise.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like they work a little different. They're like, hey, let's produce this 26-minute, thing for the half an hour block. And then we'll auction off the 4 minutes into ads as high as possible. And if you're a little pizza shop, or if you're anything, if you're anything, you want to be on TV, it's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So we figured if we could help change that a little bit, give the business owner a little bit more control of what's showing on the TV, that would be excellent. Like, I was installing it at a local pizza, a different pizza one, right in my city. And I was waiting for the manager to come back. And so I just ordered the 2-slice special, right? Like the can of Coke and the 2 slices. And I sat down, and there was this crime show that was playing on both TVs about, oh, this person did this horrific act. And then he drove to this road out in this state. And because there was no lights and no cameras on this road at this time, I'm like, these guys are giving like a roadmap for criminal. This is horrible. Imagine my kid was sitting there, right? So again, you're sitting there, you live these experiences, and you go, what if that was something positive? Now, what if that was the mayor talking about what they're doing in construction in the downtown area? Or it was the karate, maybe a karate thing that they're doing, a karate show or a ballerina show or something, right? For the community. Yeah. That would be much more positive, and it makes you think like, hey, it's cool to live here. So it's kind of a necessity of a lot of different pieces put it together, saying like, this doesn't exist yet. Let's build this.
That seems really, really cool. Like TikTok, but like a local version of that. That was probably an oversimplification of the grossest magnitude. So pardon me on that one. But I want to switch gears a little bit. Like, tell me a little bit about how the business is going, because I know that we talked a little bit beforehand about, everybody has ups and downs. Share with us.
So we're just getting to the point where we were bringing it to market, and then we had a co-founder pass away. So it was, on its way to launch and get everything moving. And then when that happens, you kind of like, oh goodness, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? And so then at that point we said, okay, let's go to venture capital and talk to them and see what we can do to raise capital. And so I learned that's probably what you should have been doing in the very beginning, right? When you have that idea, you have a concept, you want to make sure that nobody has that idea. And we wrote a patent out, we did all these things. But going to capital would have been, even if you weren't going to get it then in the beginning of the project, you kind of figure out what you need or what they're looking for. And so that would have been something that I would suggest doing beforehand, because timing is a big thing. Like, as you know, the market has fallen apart in the tech arena. I feel like a lot of people have been building tech for a long time, especially after the COVID. They put a lot of money into tech. And so now I think they've said, okay, we've put our money here. Let's see what sticks and promote and build those businesses. So it's just a matter now of where we're at is we're just expanding in Central Florida. We have a rep out in Texas. We have one in North Carolina. So we're building it out, but it would be much easier with, $50 million, of course, right?
Oh, yeah. And I take it from what you mentioned that, it was an unexpected passing that happened really suddenly. And was that something, it's not something that anybody really plans for, but I know that there are some folks out there in the business arena that are like, they've got a contingency plan for everything, including that potential worst case scenario. Did that completely catch you off guard, or was that something that you had planned for? How did that go?
Didn't plan for it, but it was kind of, we knew he was getting sick and there was things that were negative, but then right towards the, 6 months before, everything got really good and he was getting better and everything was good. So we kind of thought, okay, things are getting better. We'll keep working. We'll keep building features and then we'll launch and, hope for the best. So I don't think we had the correct contingency. That's always something to think about, but it's so negative, in the startup world, unless again, you're going to a startup accelerator and they're saying, hey, you got to have all these documents ready. You kind of just think, hey, this is a new piece of something. Let's go build it. Let's create, let's imagine. And that's where we were, Oh yeah. But it was a lot of fun because I love tech. So.
Oh, yeah. And it's always fun to imagine the best case scenario, right? And dream the big dream. Nobody ever wants to talk about the downer stuff. I know that I recently had an incident where I had a business partnership dissolve. And that's the kind of stuff that ideally, I would have liked to, conversation happens up front when you're still excited so that things don't melt down later and there's hurt feelings and confusion and everybody starts fighting. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but breakups are never easy. So whatever you can do to think your way through it beforehand is helpful. And the same thing, you don't know necessarily that somebody's going to pass away, but if you can think through, what would I do if we had to change directions and it was just me and this other person that had to go, or just me by myself that had to go forward on this, that helps a lot.
Yeah, it is, but in the very beginning, when you are financially strapped and you think, well, should I spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a lawyer and get all these documents, signed, you go through all those and you go, well, okay, maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. Right. Yeah. And that's usually the way that it goes, I would think, with a majority of businesses. Yes. Unless you have that fund, large fund that comes in or any kind of private equity and they state, hey, to protect everybody, these are the things that you have to do. Yeah. Most of the time, as person to person and a few people doing things, we don't think like that. But it is very, you think, with a 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Like, it's a lot, right? It's a high number. It's a lot. You think that would be more of a thing that people would talk about, but it's not. Well,
that's part of the impetus behind this show. I wanted to bring on people that weren't just wildly successful, and I've had people that were helming 9-figure companies. I wanted to bring on people that were just starting out, people that didn't feel qualified to talk to other entrepreneurs, people that don't feel like they're successful enough. All kinds of different stages of entrepreneurship, because the interesting statistic that doesn't get highlighted nearly enough in comparison to the number of businesses that fail is that I can't remember the exact number, but I have it in my book coming out in December 2023, by the way, is that each subsequent venture that an entrepreneur tries after that initial failure has a higher and higher and higher chance of success because they're learning and iterating and growing. And so the people that don't give up on that first one that fails, they eventually do tend to find success. And then, of course, there are people that go, this is not for me, and they go to work or they do something else. And that's totally cool. That's fine. Do what you need to do. But I mean, like, my whole point in bringing that up is that failure is happening to all of us pretty much all the time. And we're all just doing our best every day.
It is. I think entrepreneurs don't see that word though. I think some people, I have a wife and 3 girls. So we see they see words different, because I'm a programmer. So I use them differently, and just language is different. People perceive it. And after talking to so many other entrepreneurs, I think that they just think failure is like eating dinner or something. They're just like, okay, cool, that didn't work. What are we going to do next? And they're just all excited about trying something else. I'm like, most people would say, that's horrible. What happened? And
no, I'm a big fan of that. I'm always saying to the people that I coach that failure is an event and it's not your identity. It's just a thing that happens. Try not to attach yourself to it and ride that thing all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. Jump off, swim away. It's okay.
Yep. Swim away, do something different. So I've been saying hey, this is my first version. What do you think of this audio or of this intro for my podcast or for this text or something? So I asked my kids, I say, what is it? Is that a draft? And I say, draft now. Or is that version 1, version 2, version 3? And now they're getting it. So I don't remember what it was, but a couple of weeks ago, I think it was maybe drawing or something. And I go, looks good. It's not going to look good. It's first version. I go, oh my word. If I knew that when I was a kid, you wouldn't take failure so bad. You just try anything and you keep doing it.
Yeah. Failure is part of the process and rest is part of the process. And I want these things to be talked about a whole lot more. You don't have to be Silicon Valley, grind your patootie off until you find the success. You can, if that's your flavor, but that's not for everybody. And it
probably has a higher chance of failure though, grinding for, burning yourself out and doing all those things probably has a higher chance unless somebody's at the top whipping.
I mean, how are you making your best decisions when you're sleep deprived, when you're constantly stressed, when you're anxious? It's interesting. I just finished reading Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I don't know if you've ever read that one before, but there was one concept that she talked about that really resonated with me. And it's living in uncertainty and discomfort. And the people that tend to have the best relationships, the most hopefulness, who are the most resilient and bounce back after failures are the people who can learn to navigate discomfort instead of trying to get back to comfort or to deal with it or to force it away. And I was thinking about that earlier today when I did a live cast on my page, because it seems like entrepreneurs, and maybe this is why I gravitate toward talking to entrepreneurs, live in uncertainty. That's our full-time job. That's the full-time gig. You never really know what's going to happen. You could wake up tomorrow and, something unfortunate could happen with your business partner. You could wake up tomorrow and your biggest client has had a bankruptcy or has suddenly gone out of business. Or you could wake up tomorrow and the opposite could happen. Your biggest partner wants to triple their workload and you have no idea how the hell you're going to make that work. Cool. Yep. Right. Let's be uncomfortable for a little while and then trust ourselves to figure this out.
That is for sure. That is for sure. You get to the point where you kind of when you were younger, you think that's so crazy. Why would these, the CEOs jump out of airplanes and climb to the top of Mount Everest? And then you go, I could see it. Yeah, I get why it's not a big deal to them, because there's so much uncertainty in general business, and there's levels. So there's levels of 0 to this number and then 0 to that number. That's financials. Then there's another level of 0 employees to 50 employees. That's completely different. Handling the money side and then handling people. So then you put those two together. Yeah, I might climb to a top of a mountain with low oxygen too, because it's probably not as bad.
No, it's the day-to-day. It's a little bit of an escape to go on this grand adventure where death might be.
Yeah, they're probably it's not that bad. Yeah, I've been through worse.
Okay, well, and you touched on this lightly, you've mentioned a couple times that you were a programmer, and then you talked about VC and stuff like that. So was your partner the person that was kind of the front person, the person that presented all this stuff and pitched it to people? Did that change how you interacted with the company? Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah. I mean, it was 3 guys. So the senior one passed away. I still have my business partner, but those two were both out in the world. They're building businesses, they're connecting, they're in the restaurant, they're in home building, construction, they're out there. I'm the guy behind the scenes building code and imagining how this is going to connect to that. Why this API needs to talk to this API. What version are these, right? That it's like, you don't really call somebody up and say, hey, you want to talk about an API for 30 minutes over coffee? I don't have to. You read the documentation. So I kind of thought, okay, I build this. I'll go sit on the beach. I'll eventually get the Ferrari. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good. As everybody. But it's a lot of work to try to build the relationships. And I was telling somebody this the other day. It's like, how do you replace somebody with 35 years of relationships? Like,
right?
That's hard.
It really is.
Even if you had a contingency plan, how would that be?
That, and I feel there's always this synchronicity when I have the shows, but the words recently have been relationships, discomfort, vulnerability. And I know that's the big buzzword, vulnerability, but like real human connection. And I see that being in danger because is it astonishing to you, as it is to me at least, that there seems to be a surprising amount of people that are completely comfortable outsourcing all of their thinking or most of their thinking to AI now that tool exists.
I was going to say, that sounds like Chat GPT right there.
Yeah. Yep. I've had people pitch all kinds of things. And when I did a live cast earlier today, I talked about when it first came out, I tried to use it to write a breakup letter to a client that things weren't working out with. And I should not have been surprised by the result, but I was basically like, here's who you are. Here's what the situation is. I'm like trying to anonymize this because I still have a lot of respect and love for the person. It's just, sometimes business relationships don't work. And I was here's what they're asking. Here's what we can give. And this letter needs to convey points A, B, and C. And it generates a draft and it's like, cool, here's the thing that needs to happen. Here's points A, B, and C. And I'm like, that's pretty much exactly what I just told you. That doesn't accomplish anything.
Oh, it just gave you back. It didn't give you back a letter.
It formatted all the points back into sentences. And that was the extent of the letter. And I just went, okay, I don't know what I expected, but clearly I expected a lot more. But there are a lot of folks out there that, don't have those relationships. Like you were saying, to tie back to what you were saying with the partner, they don't have those relationships.
Yeah, there's 3,000 prompts though. Maybe you missed one in those 3,000 prompts for the AI to respond in this. Do you want a table of content or do you want a letter and written in professional, happy, sad? It's complex. I could see why people are like jumping into it. But the negative side is you're going to write this really nice letter or a text message or an email, and then you're going to get on the phone and then be like, hey, what's up? How's it going?
Yo,
was that you? Like, who wrote your letter? So
totally different voice.
Like it's good, but you have to use it for maybe bullet points or ideas because you don't want to lose you and your personality with those either.
And I think, I bring all of this up. It seems like a tangent, but it's really tied into what you said about how do you replace 35 years of relationships. I feel like we're at a tipping point where there's a significant portion of the population who will be mighty tempted to retreat even further and be like, peopling is too hard. So I'm going to go over here and talk to the machine because the machine can do what I need it to do, except the same skills that you need to talk to people are the ones that you need to talk to a machine. Take it from somebody that was a copy chief for many, many years. ChatGPT functions like a junior writer or like a kid in middle school that doesn't know that making shit up is wrong and maybe you shouldn't. So you have to talk to it and say, hey, can you validate that source? Hey, that I'm looking for something more like this, less of that. Like, you have to be able to talk to it, give it feedback. Feedback is part of connecting with people and building relationships. It's all connected.
It really is connected. It's the system. I don't think people should be too worried about it because if you're still meeting the person either on Zoom or in person, you still have to do that. Judge a character, check for lies and things like that. I jokingly said AI is not going to replace sales until everybody starts wearing like glasses, like Google glasses or like Apple glasses. And I'm like, when would it be? I would call it the BS app. I download the BS app, right? The person is jumping their left foot at a rate of 79.3% lies, right? I mean, it could get scary in that realm of AI, but you're still it's still going to be hard to break that sales relationship between people, because that's where a lot of it is built, you know?
Oh, and all of this is fascinating. So, all right, I'm gonna circle back a little bit too. So you've got the remaining partner who's been out there building business, and then you talked a little bit about having to kind of come to the forefront and talk a little bit more. Did your role significantly change after that, and how so?
Just kind of like added on the little bit of publicity, I guess, of creating the content. And because I was in the background, you know, I talked to some other salespeople and they would say like, oh, great, this is awesome. You're a community, you built for communities. Okay, where is the community? And I'd say, well, we were building the tech. And they're like, wait, so your community app without the community? You know, you got to build the community side. Like, where's the Facebook group of tens of thousands of people using it? And that seemed to be something, again, that really a business accelerator in the very beginning, when you're building a big project, it's worth the 10 grand. It's worth the 15,000, because you're working on the ideas and the concepts, and they're in your mind years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so everything that you do, you're now like, all right, yeah, but we got to do this piece. Oh, we have to submit a press release. We have to make sure that everybody's updated about the features. And so it feels like we're playing a little catch up in that part now, because, okay, we did kind of know we had to do these, but at the same time, everything has to be built, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And I mean, to some extent, it's almost a chicken and egg situation too. Like, what comes first, the community, the builds? Which one is more important to getting the word out there? I don't know. I'm kind of a chaos builder myself, and going, all right, well, cool, this needs to happen. So I'm just going to publicly commit to a date so that people start holding my feet to the fire, and then we'll just figure it out. It's probably not the most efficient thing, but I will say I'm good at documentation. So once I've gone through the chaos, I will write it down, and then I will get more and more efficient with it. You kind of experienced that when you came on board.
I was just going to say, you had your flight. What'd you call it? The flight checklist?
The pre-flight checklist. Yeah. For everybody that's watching the video.
I flew an airplane once, and we did a pre-flight checklist. And so I thought, this is complicated. I like this though. You have everything organized down to a T, you know, but the average person, unless they know you, this is not talked about.
Yeah. And that's 2 years of iteration right there to get to that point. In fact, so I usually record in batches. I mentioned to you before we started recording that I've got a couple more episodes today. And I do that so that I can take breaks, and the breaks allow me to pull back and look at the show and see where there are gaps, where there are things that I could fix. There were 2 big things that I wanted to fix this time around and for everybody listening, this is my first podcast recording back. David is my first guest since the break this summer. And the 2 big things that I wanted to fix were improving the overall flow and getting better about asking for ratings and reviews, because that is not something I have been great at historically. And then also, I needed to remove every instance before of, I had said before specifically, it's just you and me on video. I'm not using this video everywhere. Spoiler alert, we're using video now because we're going to grow the podcast in a big way. Oh, and there was also a little bit where, and I think it might have been some folks that are less like Acuity tech savvy and stuff like that, but they were like, I didn't get the Zoom link. I was like, it was in the calendar link. They're like, I didn't get a calendar link. I'm like, yes, you did, because you're replying to the email address that the calendar invite came from. And that's how you got that.
If you just press, yes, I'm going to be here, then it goes on your calendar. I mean, it's pretty good. It's very simple.
Yeah. And now I have it in all the follow-up emails. It's like, are you looking for the calendar link? Click this big black button
right here
and add it to your calendar. So like all of those things were my response to people having difficulties in the process. Like, I had people that panicked before that didn't know what we were going to talk about, and they weren't as comfortable riffing as you clearly are, which I love this because you're following me all over the map on this. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. I've learned to rip, but I've learned it.
Yeah. Some people are supremely uncomfortable riffing. They would prefer to have a prepared set of questions and to think about their answers. And I totally respect that. So I came up with an onboarding form that's like, here are some potential questions that we might talk about. Here's how to think about your story.
I wonder what those were always for. I was like, well, isn't this supposed to be people relationships? And then
Yeah,
I was worried about it in the beginning. I was like, but eventually it's just turn on your camera and chat, say hi, and people want to know you. They want to talk to you.
exactly. And it's fairly interesting. I never know what's going to come out of any of these conversations, and I don't prepare for them the way other podcast hosts might. Like, I don't read everybody's bio at the beginning and do a whole bunch of background research. And that's precisely because I wanted the conversation, to follow it wherever it goes. Sometimes it goes straight into a business skill. Sometimes it talks about some real heavy shit, some deep personal struggles in the middle of business. Sometimes we just goof off. And I think somebody was talking about cat videos and horses for a while. Like, whatever happens, I don't have an agenda for all of this. This is a long tangent, but yeah.
But that's what you said on the podcast, is like sitting at the bar virtually next to the other person. Just you're shooting the breeze back and forth, and whatever happens, you talk about it. And sometimes even real relationships, they do that. And you kind of have to say, like, man, I want to ask him about what he was just talking about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's why we take the notes. Because
right.
Otherwise my ADHD ass would interrupt you every other thought and be like, yes, about that, expand on that, go. No, I circle back. We take notes. So actually, yes, to circle back, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, but I did have this in the questionnaire. If you could go back in time and talk to a younger version of you, what advice would you give yourself, especially knowing what you know now about this situation that was coming up?
Well, I had a little time to think about that one, because somebody maybe it was like a couple of weeks ago, I was on a podcast and it caught me off guard there. I was like, I don't know what I would say. What would I, winning lottery ticket numbers or something fun like that? And I was like, maybe a mix of those two, like a relationship with somebody in the world that I would want to be in, probably, investor side, so that I could build a dream and have access to capital. But then maybe turning points in the Dow, that would be cool, and when should I buy and sell? Those would be neat. Spend more time with my parents. My dad passed away during the COVID mess. And because I was in Florida, and even though he had played a large role in the tech side of my upbringing, it's not like we would chat every 3 days. Like, it was probably once every couple of weeks, we text and stuff, but spend more time, because you never know when things happen. It was 14 days after that, he was gone. So it's like, and a lot of people had that experience, but, it's like you have a lot of years after a lot of people have years after the parents pass away or general family to do whatever you want. So spend a little bit of time, people's relationships. This is coming from a guy who spends a lot of time on my computer. So this is legitimate, right? So it's like, sometimes it's just, okay, I should have spent a little more time there. So that's a good mix of things.
Oh, I love that. And I think that brings it perfectly full circle I feel like relationships is just kind of the theme that's going on here. The relationships between the business owners and bringing their message to the community, the relationships that you have with your mentors, with your partners, with the people that are buying from you, that are interested in what you have to offer. Like, all comes down to people.
That's what we wanted to build. Like, our slogan is for the locals. And we were going to make it a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. I was like, no, just, I think Google's is don't be evil or something. Don't do it. Yeah. It's very short, right? It's like, it's funny, but
we could argue about whether or not that's still true.
I was going to say that might just be a scheme to say, but ours is like for the locals, because you're just like, okay, could it be weather? Yeah, for the locals. Okay, could it be social media? Yeah, for the locals. Okay, what about ads and stuff? Yeah, for the locals. Like, everybody, for them, not for. I'm watching this TV in Orlando, and it's something about California. Or something about a big national, like, give it something local. Yeah. And then we wanted to build community experts, is what we call it, because that chiropractor, he's creating content and he's teaching people, hey, this is who I am. And you might be eating your food or sitting at the bar and you're like, man, that guy is telling me how to sit in my car now. Like, maybe I like to seat back a little bit more, but he says I should sit up straight, right? And
or do that weird, like, turn your entire body sideways instead of like.
Yeah. It's like those little things, like you get those on TikTok, you get those sometimes on Instagram, but I never see it on TV, because I don't think any executive would walk in to your building and be like, all right, so we need a 5-minute clip of you talking about how to sit in a car. We'll just brand you as a community expert for your city. Wait, just my city? Oh, well, no, it's going to be 10 grand and we'll cover 5 cities.
Yeah.
My customers don't drive an hour to come to my place. So can you just do my city? No, we can't do that. Okay. So can we build relationships? Yes, that's the Tweeva idea. Build the local relationships with each other, brand them as experts. And then next time you have that back pain, you're like, oh yeah, I know who to call now. I know
remember that guy that time I saw at the pizza place. You got to call him. That sounds awesome.
I see him everywhere. Whenever I go out, it's like, I just see him when I go in my restaurants. You know, there might be another town has another guy, but that's the idea. Build those relationships.
Oh, that's so awesome. So, hey, speaking of, tell us more about the Tweeva mission, where we can find you, where people can learn more, maybe partake.
Yeah. So if you are a small business and you have foot traffic, we are looking to, put a screen or use one of your TVs so you can join the network. And then if you are also a content creator, so podcast or video podcaster, audios, we don't want to put audio on the TV. We don't want to put a video, right? An interview. Yeah. So if you're a content creator or an influencer, right, you take pictures of restaurant food. We want you to be involved in the network because we can link you with those other businesses. So you can find us on any of the social medias. It's Tweeva. We picked that name because it is simple and easy, right? So something like if I'm shooting the soccer game and, one of my kids gets a winning goal, they could be, hey, Dad, put that on Tweeva TV, right? It's not something too long to say, and it fits in there with the other social media. So find us online, tweeva.com, or any of the social medias, we're there. So we'd love to have you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate your time and for sharing your story. And we're going to have to reconnect. I want to see where Tweeva goes.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to get some of your content on there.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.